This is CBC Here and Now.
A bakery in CBS is selling heart-shaped cookies to raise money for the Ukraine.
Early Saturday morning, we made a post about it, and it just really took off. Only had about 60 cookies, not sure if people would be responsive, and they were. They sold out in about an hour.
I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll have that story coming up.
We've got some snow and cooler temperatures to close out February.
The future is very much in doubt for a lot of Roman Catholic churches here in eastern Newfoundland. But that's no longer the case for St. Kevin's Parish here in the Ghouls.
The balance of the money will become part of the estate and be used to compensate survivors of abuse.
And some of the money to remain with St. Kevin's Parish.
I'm Terry Roberts. We'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain, back from Beijing.
And I'm Peter Cowan, filling in for Carolyn tonight. We begin with efforts in this province to help those in Ukraine. Some businesses are finding ways to raise money.
And the federal government is offering to match donations. And as Jeremy Eaton reports, a little bit could go a long way.
I'm European and we design a little bit differently.
Newfoundland floral design owner Christina Adamova is offering up 3 sizes of floral bouquets mixed with foraged goods. What's happening in Ukraine is kind of personal for her. Her mother grew up in Soviet-occupied Czechoslovakia.
I was 18 when Prague was occupied, so tanks were invading the city and people were getting shot at.
Inspired by her mom, she wanted to do something.
It was a spontaneous idea where I had no idea how it was going to pick up, and now we're going closely to 30 deliveries and pickups through every day.
Her mother still lives in the Czech Republic and works with people from Ukraine.
They're stuck in Czech Republic, heartbroken, and their mother or other relative is looking after their child because the father is in a war.
Adamova has a number of volunteers helping her out, with all the money going to Ukrainian UNICEF.
I was here last night working really till 4 a.m. And every bouquet I'm thinking maybe I'll save a child.
Her goal is to raise $10,000, so she will continue to donate a portion of all sales until Mother's Day.
We take life for granted. In Canada, I'm an immigrant myself. I'm so grateful how lucky I am to be here, to live in peace and have healthcare and a government that looks after me.
The Volcano Bakery in CBS wanted to do something to help as well.
We feel like a lot of people, you just really helpless. You see all this turmoil going on in the world, and you just want to do your little part to help. And the only thing I really thought I could do was bake.
Krista Neville created these heart-shaped sugar cookies with royal icing in the colors of the Ukrainian flag.
Early Saturday morning, we made a post about it, and it just really took off from there. Only had about 60 cookies, not sure if people would be responsive, and they were. They sold out in about an hour.
Today's staff were busy making more, selling for $5 a piece. The cookies have proved to be very popular.
It's absolutely amazing. I feel very sheltered in the small business world, being at the bakery, and I'm not even sure. I really hope there's other people out there who are able to use their talent, use their creative abilities to, for good stuff.
Neville says the bakery will continue to sell the cookies for as long as they can. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, Conception Bay South.
And others trying to help. A tech and e-learning company in St. John's aims to raise $40,000 for the humanitarian relief effort in Ukraine. 6 of Blue Drop's employees are based in that country, and those people work as designers, senior IT professionals. They also mentor Blue Drop's local staff. The CEO says his company is accepting donations and making payroll deductions to help reach their goal.
They're wonderful people. There's people like Pavlo, who's a UX designer. There's a lot of senior talent like Ruslan and Ivan. There's Marta and Alexander. They're fairly senior people. Most of them are in the west of the country, which isn't too bad. There is one person in Kyiv. So yeah, we're worried about them, but they're very talented senior IT professionals.
You'll see the Ukrainian flag flying outside St. John's City Hall this week. It went up on Saturday during an emotional rally. About 200 people gathered there on the steps to show their support for Ukraine and listen to members of the local community who worry about friends and family back home.
My colleagues ask me often, do I have relatives in Ukraine? And are they okay? Are they safe? I have 44 million relatives in Ukraine, and no, they're not safe.
Most devastating part of this whole thing to me, as a mother who has 2 little school-aged children, is to think about children in Ukraine. Yesterday I was speaking to my brother, and his 9-year-old son came up to him and said, "Dad, we probably shouldn't go to bed this night, should we? Because what if they start bombing?" And I just started crying because that was such a painful moment. How do you explain to a 9-year-old what is going on?
At first I thought that if I see enough dead Russian bodies, I will feel somehow happy. I didn't. I saw kids, 20-year-old kids, whom Putin sends to Ukraine to die. Now their bodies, thousands of them, are lying on the streets, in the fields, in the steppes of Ukraine. They need to go home to their parents. They need to be buried with dignity.
I think the most realistic and doable way to help would be to donate money. Donate money through reliable sources like the Red Cross, for example. So that would be a real help.
Well, in other news now, there's a decision tonight on what to do with the millions of dollars in play from Chase the Ace. That money was raised by a church in the Ghouls, but as we've reported, the Catholic Church is also trying to raise money to compensate victims of Mount Cashel. As Here Now's Terry Roberts reports, the outcome will result in a very unique situation.
It was a summer sensation in 2017, a Chase the Ace fundraiser that attracted thousands each week to the Ghouls, and it became a phenomenal fundraiser for St. Kevin's Parish, money that was to be spent on parish upgrades and community support programs. But that $5.5 million in Chase the Ace funds became a big target when the courts ruled that the Archdiocese of St. John's was vicariously responsible for abuses suffered at the former Mount Cashel orphanage. The corporation that owns all the church properties in the Archdiocese is in the process of liquidating churches, parish halls, and other assets. All cash reserves for each parish and the Archdiocese have also been consolidated. It's all part of an effort to raise millions in order to compensate victims of abuse at the orphanage in the 40s and 50s. A ground-shaking process for an institution and a faith that has been part of the province's social fabric for hundreds of years. But St. Kevin's Parish resisted, using the same spirit that propelled them to Chase the Ace stardom. The parish hired a lawyer in a bid to protect their property and their money. And they've been largely victorious. An out-of-court settlement was reached on Sunday, one that will see an undisclosed portion of that $5.5 million going to abuse victims. Another sum will stay with the parish. As for the church and the parish hall, its estimated market value is $1 million, but its ownership will be transferred to a new entity called St. Kevin's Parish Incorporated, mortgage-free.
Once this agreement is signed, this agreement that we now have in principle, St. Kevin's Church behind me will become the first Catholic church in the province to fully own itself and be owned by the members of its community.
The parish argued that the money was intended to be used in the community.
In our view, the settlement that we've negotiated is one that allows that to continue to happen and allows the church to continue its important community work.
This lawyer represents about 70 Mount Cashel survivors.
It's a compromise, but it is one that will see a significant sum of money put forward to be used to compensate these survivors.
It's the latest chapter in the Mount Cashel abuse scandal, and it's likely to forever change the footprint of the Catholic Church in eastern Newfoundland. Some churches have already closed. More are likely. It's not known how much money will be available for the victims, but Jeff Budden says tens of millions will be needed to address the abuse claims.
Our goal is to make this a survivor-centered insolvency and to maximize the return so that these survivors will get what they are legally entitled to.
Church leaders are not commenting, but in past letters to parishioners have expressed a desire to bring healing to the victims and eventually close what is a dark chapter in the long history of the Archdiocese. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, as of today, travelers entering the province are no longer required to isolate or fill out a travel form. Now, that's been a mandatory practice since it was introduced almost 2 years ago. Now, it's part of a number of COVID-19 restrictions that are changing today. Border enforcement will be removed at airports and ferry terminals, and rapid testing for 5 days, well, that's now voluntary. Now also, there are 2 more deaths from COVID-19 since the update on Friday. One is a man in his 60s in the Central Health region, and the other is a woman over the age of 80 in Eastern. Meanwhile, there are also close to 900 confirmed cases since that last update. Public Health says there are 19 people currently in hospital, and 6 of them are in critical care.
The province's Labour Minister likes the idea of making sure all workers get paid sick leave, but so far there's no commitment on when or even if that will happen. Right now, workers in this province are entitled to 7 sick days, but companies don't have to pay you. Other provinces like BC, PEI, and Quebec require paid sick days. Bernard Davis says he'd like to make it happen here, but the federal government will need to cover some of the cost. This afternoon, he told me that won't happen in the next few months. We're seeing the COVID measures are going to be dropped by the middle of next month. That likely means that a lot of the supports that come along with COVID are going to be dropped. So now COVID's still going to be here, but now workers have the choice. I've got the sniffles, I think it might be COVID. Do I go into work and potentially infect people, or do I stay home, but now I lose out on a day's pay?
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's exactly where the conversations went. I mean, how can we support the employees to the best of our ability, given the financial envelopes that we have in this province, and other jurisdictions were the same. So we've asked the federal government to come to the table with opportunities to support us in this, and not just support us as provinces, but support the employees, which is the key focus for us, and those employers that have gone through probably the worst time in their life as an employer during this COVID time. So, you know, you have to strike that balance between the needs and wants of employees, which is always paramount for me as the minister responsible for labour, but also finding that balance for the employers, those small businesses that have struggled, and that's why we need the federal government to come to the table, and that's where the conversations went with Minister O'Regan as well as my other colleagues across the country.
An economist at Memorial University says interest rates will have to be raised in order to lower inflation. Last week, inflation in Canada hit 5.1%, the highest it's been since 1991. That means the prices of many things we buy are going up significantly. Lynn Gambin says this is due to supply chain issues related to the pandemic. She says banks will raise interest rates to try and lower inflation, and that should lower demand for goods, goods in short supply, which should eventually lower costs again.
Well, we now know a lot more about the terrifying events of April 2020 in Nova Scotia, when a lone gunman murdered 22 people before being killed himself. The Commission of Inquiry looking into the tragedy has released the first documents laying out what it knows about the events on the weekend of April 18th and 19th in the tiny coastal community of Portapique. The CBC's Blair Rhodes reports, and a warning, some of the details are graphic.
Started with a fight between the gunman and his common-law partner. He assaulted her, shooting at her feet, then tried to confine her in the back of a car he'd mocked up to look like a police cruiser. She managed to escape and run into the woods, but by then he'd set fire to their cottage and a warehouse and had started shooting and killing their neighbors. In the chaos and confusion, there were multiple calls to 911. Just minutes after he started his rampage, callers had given authorities his name, his profession, and the details about his fake police car. "There's a police car in the effing driveway," one said. "There's a police car in the driveway," 911 responded. "There is a police car, but he's a denturist." Jamie Blair was shot moments later while still on the phone with 911. Her child and another child next door identified the gunman about 25 minutes later at 10:30 to dispatch. 911. Did it have lights and stuff on it? Yeah. And it has the cop symbol on it, and he owns a cop car. Yeah, he does. Because he owns 7 Ford, white Ford cars. They're all identical. A man who pulled up beside the gunman and was shot but survived told 911 it was his neighbor, Gabe. His wife also shared with 911 he was driving a police car. Kate McDonald, my husband just got shot. 911, yes ma'am. Is there a police officer there? It's not a cop. It's not the cops. It was somebody else.
You hear the shots in the call. You hear the female screaming, in this case, Kate McDonald, and you can hear the woman screaming again later in the call. It's alarmingly dramatic, and that is the McDonalds at that point have experienced the perpetrator face to face.
Kate McDonald confirmed the suspect's name again and that the suspect shot at them from a cop car. She also told police officers about a back way out of the area. Most of the RCMP officers responding to the first 911 calls had taken up positions on the main road leading into Portapique. The commission now believes the gunman drove through a blueberry field onto a private road, escaping into the night. Blair Rhodes, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, a special charter flight landed in Gander this weekend filled with some very important passengers. 35 dogs en route to their forever homes.
Yeah, those dogs came from Labrador. Here now's Garrett Barry explains why.
Meet Freya, a 10-week-old husky mix who's finally got some space of her own. Her journey to this SPCA was a long one. This weekend, her foster mom loaded her up for her flight from Goose Bay to Gander.
I've been doing this for well over 20 years, and I have to say that Freya was one of the largest puppies I think I've ever had.
That's an incredible thing. Born to a stray dog, volunteers think Freya may be the only one of her litter to survive.
The owners of the mother dog knew that the litter was under the shed, but had a hard time getting underneath it with all of the snow and the ice and everything. So they finally got enough room that one of the kids could get underneath the shed and get her out. Unfortunately, some of her litter mates probably didn't make it out.
It's left her a bit shy, but now she's a hit. The phone's been ringing off the hook with suitors calling for her and the 14 other dogs who arrived in Gander.
I actually have over 30 messages on my phone this morning, and I just have not had a chance to return their calls.
All these puppies will get a good shot at a good home.
It's exciting, especially since we haven't had this in years.
Thanks to a collaboration between SPCAs in this province, dogs have moved from Labrador to Newfoundland before, but never on a private chartered plane.
We're way over capacity, and we've been having a hard time moving them lately with regular flights.
That's how busy it has been. Since January, the SPCA has been taking in more than one animal each day.
Adoption process can take a while when you're processing applications, and we simply cannot, with the amount of animals we have coming in constantly, we simply cannot humanly keep up with the application process.
So it was off to Gander and St. John's, where the waiting list for adoptions is long. Soon, they'll be on the move again, to permanent homes. But for now, these puppies are catching up on vaccines, checkups, and getting a bit of sleep. Garrett Barry, CBC News, Gander.
It was like a bad dream. It really was. It was like a nightmare.
Their daughter tragically died in Ecuador trying to save others, but the details of what happened, that's what the Marshals have struggled to understand.
Tonight, we're piecing together the final moments of Catherine Marshall's life.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley, today in St. John's, the weather was absolutely beautiful. This is what winter should be, like just below zero, a little bit of dusting of snow, not much wind, lots of sun. Unfortunately, this is not the weather we normally get here, so I am curious how long this is going to last. But before we get to that, let's take a look at a video, because it's really cute.
Ish.
I think it's cute. Take a look at this weekend visitor. Victoria Keefe and her grandparents let their dog outside to enjoy some fresh air in Black Tickle.
And then quickly saw that a polar bear had come to say hello, and he wasn't just interested in the dog.
Yeah, this was Nanook's first time meeting a polar bear. That's the name of the dog, and also the name of the polar bear. But it seems to be the first time that this bear met a dog. Thankfully, no one was harmed, and it all turned out well in Black Tickle. So thanks for sharing.
Good thing it turned out well. That is a scary sight for sure. But yeah, we've been talking about cold temperatures for Labrador anyway over the last couple of months. Not the case across the island, but if we look at the temperature outlook over the next couple of months, March, April, and May, it does look like Environment Canada's forecast anyway showing that we could see some below normal temperatures over the next couple of months. Now, some other forecasts showing that we could see some just nearly above temperature or normal in and around southern areas of the island as well as the Avalon. So definitely a forecast to keep an eye on over the next couple of months. The end of February definitely ending rather, well below where we should be sitting this time of year, around -7 for Corner Brook, -2 in St. John's today, and those temperatures up across Labrador hovering around -21 for Lab City today. Now, taking a look at the outlook as we head a little bit further through the week, we are going to see this cold air stick around, all that Arctic air up across Labrador. Same thing for the island as we head into Wednesday night into Thursday. We are going to start to see a bit of a warm up for the eastern half of the island, temperatures flirting with or a couple of degrees above zero as we head into Thursday night, into the afternoon sticking around as well, and then we'll see a return again as we head into the weekend of some of that colder air. Today, though, not a whole lot happening except all of that cold air in. Ridge of high pressure to the west, funneling some of that air in, but we do have an area of low pressure just to the south, and that is going to bring in some snow as we head through the evening hours tonight. Temperature's not too bad out there right now, hovering around -5, but a bit of a wind chill. Now, those winds are going to ramp up as we head through the overnight tonight and into the first half of tomorrow morning. So there's a look at the current satellite picture. You can see some of the flurries showing up now on the radar, and that's generally what's going to happen for the eastern half of the island as we head through the overnight. Now, most of the west coast has been seeing that onshore snow, and that will continue through the night as well, with accumulations generally between 2 to 5 centimeters for at least the eastern half of the island, and then along the west coast as well. Temperatures tonight will dip. They're going to be into the -teens overnight with those winds again out of the northwest, between 30 to 50, even 70 kilometers per hour out of the northwest. And then those temperatures up across Labrador hovering around -24 for Happy Valley Goose Bay tonight. Now, as we head through the day tomorrow, the onshore flurries will continue again for the west coast. Otherwise, we should actually see some clearing skies for the rest of the island and up across Labrador. Beautiful day under a mix of sun and cloud, and temperatures will be fairly chilly again. So here's a look at the snowfall totals just one more time along the west coast. Again, 2 to 5 centimeters. Higher elevations may see between 5 to 10. And then generally looking at about 2 to 5 centimeters of fluffy snow for the Avalon. And again, with some of those winds, we could see some blowing snow through the overnight. Now, as far as what we're going to see temperature-wise tomorrow, you're looking at around 8 to 9 degrees below zero with those winds out of the west, about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour, and temperatures in the double digits as you head towards the west coast, northern peninsula. A beautiful but chilly day up across the Big Land with your temperatures hovering between -13 to -18. And those winds generally out of the west or northwest around 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. So let's look at tomorrow's forecast. We'll look ahead to midweek when I come back.
Well, it was a tragic death earlier this month in Ecuador. The details about what happened in the final moments of Catherine Marshall's life have not been clear. We know the 41-year-old Newfoundlander died a hero, trying to rescue some children caught in a tide. But her parents have been struggling to piece together exactly what happened. Here now's Chrissy Holmes has more.
On Sunday, February 13th, the lifeguards who patrol Ecuador's Montanita beach were still in shock.
We are really sorry because we couldn't do more.
It took 2 days for the news to travel from Montanita, Ecuador, to St. John's, Newfoundland.
And the doorbell rang and went to the doorbell, and it was 2 police officers. And when 2 police officers come to your door, it's a little bit surprising.
It's like, the words that you see in movies, and you never think you will hear. We regret to inform you. It was like a bad dream. It really was. It was like a nightmare.
Their 41-year-old daughter, Catherine Marshall, drowned in Ecuador. She traveled there with her Ontario-born partner, Jason Joniak. Police delivered the news to his parents in Brantford, Ontario at the same time. The information from Ecuador was limited.
It was, your daughter has drowned in attempt to rescue some children who got in trouble in the ocean. And that is all they could tell us. Well, we just had so many questions. We wanted to know everything that we could, how it all happened. And these were the last moments of our children's lives. And it was important for us to know who they were trying to save and that they did indeed survive.
This was the last picture Jay posted on social media from Montanita Beach. CBC reached out to Global Affairs and to authorities in both countries for details on how the Canadian couple died. The Montanita lifeguards were the first to respond.
Now this is the group that we are in.
On a video call with CBC, 4 of the responding lifeguards told us what happened after hours on Friday, February 11th.
I wanted to stay behind and watch the sunset because it was stunning. As I was about to leave the lifeguard's tower to clock off, one of my teammates that was at the beach whistled at me, called me, indicating that there was something going on. I looked, and at that moment, the current had dragged a lot of people. There were 10 people swimming to the shore. We call it a multiple rescue. There were children and adults, and amongst them, the Canadian folks that died. Because they saw what was going on with the kids, because the children were younger, the kids couldn't reach the bottom, so the couple was nearby and tried to help. So because they could reach the bottom, the couple, the water was up to their chests. But the tide, that day we had 2-meter high tides. When they couldn't hold the kids anymore, they were split by a wave that hit them. So the kids were able to get out, but the other 2 couldn't. And when I got to the back, she was there in the water, unfortunately cyanotic. Quickly, I tried to give her CPR in the water. I tried to give her first aid. It is very complicated to do that in the water.
With help from a surfer, Christian got Catherine to shore. He continued CPR, knowing the ambulance wouldn't make it on time.
So we took her to the hospital on an ATV sitting down.
When they arrived, the doctors told them it was too late. A little while later, Jason's body was found. Catherine and Jay were the 4th people to drown on the beach this month. This spot, where the tides cross over, is where Catherine and Jason lost their lives. But they did save others.
Catherine was always ready to help. Always ready to give something away to help somebody. She was a giver, and what she did, I guess, doesn't surprise us so much because it's the kind of thing that you would expect.
It's not even surprising, not a bit, because she wouldn't have thought twice, she just would have reacted. That's how she lived her life. It really is. She loved people. She loved her family. She loved music. She loved art. She was an amazing artist herself. Yeah, there was really nothing small about her, you know. She was just, she lived life large. We just didn't know all the information of in their attempt, did they actually reach the children, you know, but they did, and that just meant so much.
The Montanita lifeguards say Catherine and Jay died the way many of their colleagues have, in the water. The Guadavidas call them the angels, those who help every time they risk their lives in effort to save others. Chrissy Ohms, CBC News, St. John's.
Delegates from the UN's 193 member states gathered today for a rare emergency meeting as Russia continues its assault on Ukraine. Ukraine's UN ambassador compared the conflict to World War II.
Very clear parallels could be drawn with the beginning of the Second World War too. And the Russia's course of action is very similar to what their spiritual mentors from the Third Reich employed on the Ukrainian land 80 years ago.
Separately, Russian and Ukrainian delegations met for talks at the Belarus border. Both sides left without an agreement to end the conflict, but with a promise to meet again. In Kiev, people lined up to buy food and water after 2 nights trapped inside by curfew. While fighting continued on the outskirts of the capital and in Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, meanwhile, Canada was among several countries to announce new sanctions on Russia's central bank, and Ukraine signed an application to join the EU.
Well, that's the latest on the unfolding war story in Ukraine. And one person who's keeping his eyes on what's happening joins me now. Imad Raskala works here as the CEO of Blue Drop, and you've got some workers in Ukraine. Tell me a bit about that connection.
Yeah, we have 6 people working there now. We've had up to a dozen over the last 4 years. And it's a really interesting backstory. We hired a chap named Carlos in the early 90s. He was a Cuban living in Ukraine with his Ukrainian wife. He wanted to get out. I mean, back then, of course, the Soviet Union was crumbling. He was looking for a way out. So he found a plane that was going to Cuba, knew it was stopping somewhere in the West, didn't know where, got off the plane in Gander. He was the very first programmer I ever hired. So you know, fast forward 20 years, we were really in a jam with a very large contract in Ontario. We needed lots of senior talent, which is almost impossible to find. I called Carlos and Galina. She had been working there with a little company before she left. She was sharing a laptop with the founder because they couldn't afford to get more than one computer. That company had now 5,000 people. Wow. And they provided us the first team, and we've been working with them ever since. And just wonderful people, really great talent, really kind people. They're helping mentor some of our junior folks here and moving them along. It's been a great relationship for us.
So tell me about these people specifically. Who are they?
Oh, they're wonderful people. There's people like Pavlo, who's a UX designer. There's a lot of senior talent like Ruslan and Ivan, Marta and Alexander. They're fairly senior people. Most of them are in the west of the country, which isn't too bad. There is one person in Kyiv. So yeah, we're worried about them, but they're very talented senior IT professionals.
Imad, the company's trying to do something to help these workers by fundraising. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, our employees, obviously, because we meet these people every day, sometimes, you know, virtually, they're on all our social channels internally. So immediately, a few people immediately started raising money. So we decided to raise $40,000 as a company with our staff and ourselves. We're doing payroll deductions. And you know, we hope to get there pretty quickly and help with some humanitarian causes over there.
So this is because obviously we're seeing, you know, unfortunately one of the worst things you see in a war is a mass movement of refugees, essentially.
Yes.
So some of your workers are now part of that.
Yeah, some people have gone to Poland early on, and some people, their families are gone over there. Some of them are, you know, off for a few days. Some of them are still working. It's really quite something. And but all of them are safe, and you know, they're all horrified as we are. But obviously, you know, we only have a small connection. They're living that day to day.
What's it like for you to watch what's unfolding, knowing you've got colleagues and coworkers over there?
Oh, it's absolutely shocking. And I when I was young, you know, I was a 5-year-old. There was a war between, I'm Egyptian, there was a war at the time. I remember still today, you know, so many years later, and it never even came close to my home, but I remember every time a plane flew overhead, you had to go inside. You're not allowed to pick up anything. So I think of the trauma for the kids, and I think this is a poor country. I mean, relatively poor. They're developing. They have a powerful IT industry that was just growing and lifting them up. So Ukraine just seems like they can't catch a break, you know. It's very sad because they're good people and they work hard, and they really just want their independence and their freedom. They want to make something of their country, and to have this happen is really unbelievable.
Right. Well, listen, I wish you the best in fundraising and helping the people in Ukraine to the best abilities you can. And I guess we'll just stay in touch and hope for the best.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to, you know, reach out to us to find out some of the causes that we're donating to, they can email trueblue@bluedrop.com, and we'll just share with them what we're doing. But I really hope that everybody can, you know, think of them and be in solidarity with them. And if people are able to help, that would be great.
All right, Imad, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, the province is becoming more multicultural, and tonight we're starting a new series to celebrate some of the people making an impact here, and it's called Herstory, a spotlight on some inspiring Black women in the province.
It's hosted by Nicole Odiobiaka, president of MUN's Black Student Association. Each week, she'll speak with an influential Black woman to learn about the experiences that have shaped their lives. This week's features Laurabelle Mba, a constituency assistant with the provincial government.
There are so many amazing Black women in Newfoundland and Labrador who are making a huge impact and are doing remarkable things with their lives. I wanted to get their best piece of advice and find out about the experiences that have shaped them into who they are today, in hopes to inspire and empower others. Laurabelle Umba is a constituency assistant and a mom to a 3-year-old little boy. She recognizes the current disparities in society for BIPOC, marginalized and underrepresented communities and lends her voice and experience to bring their concerns and struggles to the decision-making table. She's a member of the Anti-Racism Coalition of Newfoundland and Labrador. So thank you so much for meeting with me today, Laurabelle. You look stunning, I must say.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So could you tell me a bit more about yourself and the organizations that you work with that advocate for the Black community here in Newfoundland and Labrador?
So when it comes to advocating for the Black community, I first want to say that the Black community, one, is not a monolith. There are very different representations of what it means to be Black within Newfoundland and Labrador. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's very much been about anti-racism and creating a space where Black people can be themselves without the pressure of trying to fit into the mold that society has set, mm-hmm. or trying to go against what racist ideologies believe we are and what we're capable of. So I've done a lot of that with my work with the Anti-Racism Coalition of Newfoundland and Labrador, and just basically in how I try to live my life, I try to be myself. I happen to be Black. It is part of my identity, which I really love, but it is not the whole existence of who I am. It is one part that I enjoy representing, whether it's how I dress, my hair, and things like that. But I want people to know that Black people come in so many different varieties. Yes. So that's what I try to show. Could you tell me a bit more about your new role with the government? What exactly does that entail? So as a constituency assistant, my role is basically I am a helper for the Minister of the House of Assemblies. Anything that the government has a hand in that affects your life, you are able to ask your member of the House of Assemblies to advocate on your behalf. So when someone is having issues with any of these government systems, they'll call into their member of House of Assemblies, and then they will have someone like me who will field the call originally and then communicate the issue back to the minister, whoever that might be, and then they advocate on their behalf. So why did you make the decision to take on that role? As a Black woman, it's not very often that you see people like us in the political spectrum. So getting a chance to be in government and sit at a table where our voices aren't typically represented, it would have been a disservice for me to walk away from that role. And it's a great chance to kind of increase minority voices in the political system. That's really inspiring that you're doing that, and we definitely appreciate the work that you're doing and what's more to come. So what was your experience like in Newfoundland and Labrador, and how did that shape your decision to step out of the norm and advocate for the Black community? I happen to work downtown, and so that's customer service, but it's customer service where people are inebriated and they have no inhibitions. So I've gotten to experience racism and microaggressions and misogynoir in a way that typically I wouldn't have been exposed to if I stayed purely on campus. As much as Newfoundland has so much to offer that is great and fantastic, and it is a very welcoming community, it's also very hard to feel fully accepted when you don't look like what a typical Newfoundlander looks like, and you don't sound like, and you don't have the same experiences. And if you're new to the community, as much as you're invited to Sunday dinner, it's not your Sunday dinner. I'm not sitting there having jollof rice. I'm sitting there having jigs, and that's fantastic, but it's not my home, and I've worked really hard to make it my home. I've worked really hard to get myself entrenched in the community where I feel as comfortable and as authentic as I can be. My biggest motivation will be my son. There is no one who makes me want to get up and do the things I do as much as that little boy does, because I know what my life has been. I know how hard my parents worked to get me to a place where I can be myself and do the things I want to do and not always have to think about whether my race is going to be a hindrance or whether my gender is going to be a hindrance. I want to create a world where my son feels freer than that. I want him to, and other children like him, to be able to be whatever they want to be without feeling limited due to racism or socioeconomic backgrounds or any of those things.
And I definitely think that the work that you're doing right now is going to pave that way for kids like your son in the future.
Let's hope. He's real cute. So.
Yes.
I might be biased.
Yeah. And do you have any piece of advice for our viewers watching today?
If the space is not there for you, make it for you. We have sat in a world where we've been asking for people to create spaces for us and make it so our voices are heard. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it's really great and spaces are created for us, but it doesn't always work that way. And that shouldn't be what stops us from doing what we want to do. So take the chance, make the spaces for yourself, and there will be people who would be in your way, yes, but there will be so many more people who will be standing right there to help you get to wherever you want to get to. Just let them, ask for help, and fight for your space.
Thank you so much for sharing your great words of wisdom with me. I greatly appreciate it.
It has been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So Ashley, a bit of snow in the forecast,
Yep.
but I guess like the last snowfall, it'll be a nice sort of manageable amount for me and my shovel in my back.
That's right. This weekend, beautiful snow, nice fluffy snow.
Oh yeah, just gives everything a nice little coating, covers up all the
Cleans it up.
brown
That's
bits,
right.
and makes the whole world seem nice again.
Exactly. So we've got a little bit more of that on the way tonight. Let's take a look at the forecast as we head through Tuesday evening into Wednesday morning. So generally looking at the potential for some flurries continuing along the west coast, and that's basically just onshore flurries. And then as we head through Wednesday morning, then we see the next system roll through. And this one looks like it'll bring some snow, which will likely be heavy for parts of the west coast, particularly inland and in those higher elevations, even along the south coast. That will continue to move through into the afternoon on Wednesday. Temperatures are going to start to warm up a little bit as well. So back up to about 0, -1. And then up across Labrador, those temperatures as well, starting to be relatively mild, relatively speaking anyway, though, about -9 for Happy Valley Goose Bay. Now, as far as the amounts go, like I said, this is through Thursday morning. We could see in those higher elevations 30 to 40 centimeters. These are early indications, but that risk is certainly there. You're definitely going to keep an eye on that forecast. And then the snowfall that you're seeing there, close to the 15 to 20 or 20 to 30 centimeters, will be in the higher elevations. And that's everything that will fall between now and Thursday morning. So if we take a look at the forecast as we head through Thursday morning, we are looking at that quickly moving through some flurries and or showers for the first half of the day, and then a little bit of a break in the weather through the afternoon. We could actually see some sunshine, then another round of snow will move in Thursday evening. That will quickly move through. Looks like showers and or maybe a rain-snow mix for the Avalon, but overall temperatures will be hovering a little bit below. You'll see that warm up through the overnight. Beautiful up across Labrador, temperatures between -15 and -20. Taking a look ahead over the next couple of days, we're looking at temperatures staying below 0, except again in that overnight period, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Otherwise, back down to about -8 by Friday, looking a little bit unsettled through the weekend, at least the start of the weekend, with that potential for some flurries. And then for central Newfoundland, you're looking at snow late day Thursday, and then flurries of story Friday and Saturday with some peaks of sun as well. And then that onshore flurry activity continuing for the west coast. Gray skies, snow. This is good news, though, for you snow lovers, certainly on the west coast, with your temperatures back down well below 0, -12 for your Friday into Saturday, looking at a temperature around -9. Now for eastern Labrador, a few flurries on Wednesday, Thursday, looking beautiful. Maybe a few flurries Friday and Saturday as well. Overall, not a whole lot in the way of accumulation, and temperatures into the -teens. -20s, the story for western Labrador, as we see that potential for flurries returning, at least gray skies returning both Friday and Saturday. Take a look at this shot. Little Lexi enjoying the view in Broad Cove. Rob shared this great shot with us. Thank you so much for that. And if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
And the dog lobby group managed to get a lot of canines on the show tonight.
Yeah, I was wondering, as a cat lover, Anthony, you're probably a little disappointed here.
I love dogs too. And it's, we need fairness and balance in this industry, but the dogs get their day. Cats are too busy running the internet as it is. Nice to see you guys, by the way. I feel like I haven't seen you in ages.
It has been a while.
Well, we've seen you because you've been on the show while you were reporting from Beijing. But yeah, no, it's nice to have you back here in the studio with us. And can't help but notice you didn't bring any presents.
Nope. I'm pretty sure you promised me a puck, by the way.
I did. And we will get to that in due course. We will get to that in due course. No, it's really good. It was great. It was great to be there. I had Brad Gouget as my seatmate coming back.
Oh, thanks.
On a flight that was delayed for 4 hours. So I learned more about curling than I ever thought I would. No, it was really nice, and it was great to actually get a chance to see him and the team curl. And there was actually lots of fun, despite the fact it was kind of weird with the pandemic and the Chinese making the games go ahead. But I was really looking forward to come home, and it's great to be back.
And you saw some snow while you were there?
Yeah, the weather.
Fake snow.
Hey, actually, great forecasting you've done for China. Perfect Winter Olympic weather.
Yeah.
No, it was quite an experience.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you back.
Glad to be back.
Yeah. Well, and thanks so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. That does it. Have a great evening. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
All right. See you then.
Good night.